Well, good evening, everybody. Hello, Texans. It's time to release the schedule. Mark Vandermeer and John Harris with you. And when I say it's time to release the schedule, I mean not quite yet, because it's going to be another 8 minutes and 45 seconds. But Johnny, in 8 minutes and 45 seconds, we'll have it all right here. And we're live on Sports Radio 610, live on Facebook, Twitter, every platform we can think of in humanity. And we've got the schedule. It is so exciting.
It is very exciting. It's so funny because we were talking to McClain a little while ago, and he made a good point, and that was when the NFL Network took this over, or took over and started unveiling, having a schedule release show. It feels like every year just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then obviously you have a confluence of events here with COVID-19 and us just wanting anything sports-wise we can hang our hat on. Obviously, the draft was a big one. The Last Dance documentary has been a big one. And then once we found out the schedule was going to be released today, I think we all were like, okay, sitting on pins and needles, like, okay, it's got to happen. I mean, last night we talked about it. I was dying. I was like, I want to know. I just want to know. That's all I wanted. I just want to know where. I knew where, but when. That becomes hugely important.
Well, before we go anywhere else, I want to give you credit, my friend, because I think it was 2 months ago or whatever, you said expect the opener to be at Kansas City because they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and they get to host that Thursday night opener more often than not. Last year, you had the Packers and the Bears because it was the 100th season, and those are the oldest teams, and they wanted to kick it off that way. Then the Patriots opened on that Sunday night against the Steelers. Well, back to it we go with the defending Super Bowl champs getting that Thursday night. And it kind of leaked out today. McClain reported it that the Texans would indeed be at Kansas City Thursday night to kick off the NFL season. I think it's an honor to be in that game, really, for any team. Obviously, if you won the Super Bowl, it's tremendous. But to be the opponent, I think is tremendous. And the national stage, you talk about it when you have prime time, you're on the national stage anyway. This is the first real NFL action since the Super Bowl, and you're going back to the scene of the playoff loss. And you know what I like to say, Johnny? Rip off the Band-Aid, get it done, see what happens that night.
You're absolutely right. This is the epitome of ripping off the Band-Aid. I don't know what Kansas City will be allowed to do as far as celebration and all that, but we've watched that game from afar, just on TV, a number of years, watching what New England does, and they drop the banner, and then there are fireworks that go off, and the Minutemen are shooting their rifles or whatever they call them out in the corner. I don't know what Kansas City is all going to do, but all that pomp and circumstance is going to precede the game, and then all of a sudden you're going to get back in against, basically a game in which you're going to test where you are going into the 2020 season. And when we went to New Orleans last year, that game against New Orleans last year,
huge.
It was a measuring stick game. I remember when it came out, I was like, whoa, we got to play New Orleans on Monday night. Oh, man. And then we went toe-to-toe with those guys in their building after the last game with them was against the Rams, and they felt like they should have gone to the Super Bowl with that non-call. So we went toe-to-toe with them and should have brought a win back home, but didn't. Either way, I remember how I felt when that game was announced. It's like, okay, New England in 18, Saints in 19, Chiefs in 20. Let's rip it off and let's just go and get this thing going.
Look, I love having a tough opener in any level of football because I think it's extra motivation for the players. Not that they need it. These are pros. They should be ready if you open up against Trinity or whatever. But it's the Chiefs. It's there. We all remember what happened there. It's got to give them a little extra getting ready for this. Now, it's not ideal this year. By the way, we're 5 minutes away from the release of the schedule, so keep it right here, and we will have it all for you. It gives you a little extra getting ready for the opener. This year it's tougher because of COVID and no OTAs, no off-season program except virtually, digitally. And I don't know how they're going to do training camp, if that's going to be any different. But they plan on releasing a schedule and a preseason schedule tonight. So we have a lot of things to digest. And, McClain was saying, well, you never know. They might have to change some of these things. And maybe they do. But they say they're going to go. And look, we still have 3 months. We still have 3 months, more than 3 months until the preseason opener, as it were. So we'll see how that plays out. And we're all excited to see how these games are put together.
As you've said numerous times, things can change. I mean, just in a week's time, think of how things have changed places are reopening slowly. We don't know about a second wave, all that kind of stuff, which is really nothing that I could speak to from an expert's level. You can't.
I can fake it.
But I mean, we can fake it, but we don't know. So you know what? We unveil the schedule. Here are the dates. Here's where we're going. Here's where we're going to be. Here are the night games. Here are the noon games. Here are the afternoon games. Here is this game. Here's that. This is what it will be if everything holds true. And like you said, we've got some time before we get to that point,
right,
to make advancements in finding vaccines and testing and all that kind of stuff. So you know what? I want to leave all that to the side and just say, here's the schedule as we know it. That's it. Here's the schedule as we know it.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at it. Let's dive into it. And
let's dive.
Yeah, we're definitely going to dive.
I mean, you know what I feel like right now? I feel like Ryan Seacrest in Times Square on New Year's Eve. And I always watch that because I want to see how I record it, even if I'm not home. Because as a broadcaster, you want to see how he fills the time. Yeah. And, we have an NFL schedule to get ready for. He's got like the new year, and you would think there's a lot of material, but it's like, it was a great year, and we're getting ready for another one. Little did he know it would be happening in 2020. Less than 3 minutes away, by the way. And our buddy John Boudreau is producing on radio, Tyler Marcotte on video, and Tyler's going to flash the schedule up. I'll read it live right here at 6:30, and we'll get into the preseason as well a little bit, but that'll be later. We want to get into the meat of it instantly. It leaked out today that the Chiefs would be the opener on that Thursday night to kick off the season. Here's another thing. If that's the game, Johnny, you have that mini bye right away. And we always talk about in a season, there's always a 1 to 2 level improvement, whether it's years that a player has played, but it's also in a season. Week 1 to week 2 is big in the NFL, I think, especially this year. So whatever happens that Thursday, you've got 10 days to get ready for the next one, which I'm hoping is at home. That next one, which is going to be obviously another huge step. I mean, they're all big building blocks in the course of you putting together a playoff campaign, every single one of them. Yeah, no doubt. And think last year, we started on a Monday night. We were I would say complete opposite, but polar opposite. Instead of playing Thursday, you played Monday night. Now you did return home for a week. Now you're playing a short week right off out of the chute. Like, oh man. So that, as excited as we were about playing a Monday night game, as excited as we were about playing the Saints, because it's a night game that doesn't have a long trip, we're looking at it we're going right into a short week right out of the chute. Now, play that game Thursday night, you get the mini bye, and then you can get hopefully, and I don't know what will happen after that, hopefully we'll start to get in a routine of some sort, but we get that mini bye right away, which I think could be very helpful in this season. Well, we have 1 minute and 10 seconds till we can release this schedule legally. And by legally, I mean according to the rules of the National Football League. And at 7 o'clock, NFL Network has their big show. Sports Radio 610 has a show. But we got a show right now because we are inside of 1 minute until the NFL schedule comes out. And most importantly for us, the Houston Texans schedule. Yes. I'm glad you brought up last year just quickly because it shows you how big every game is. You beat the Patriots, you lose to Denver. Jaguars, you beat them at home, but it was by the hair of your chinny chin chin. You got the win, which is great. But it shows you that every game is hard. Every game is difficult. Bill O'Brien always says that. People don't want to hear it, but it's so true. Every win is precious in this league, no matter how you get it. And you just know it's going to be another adventure. Every year I feel that power, that angst, the drama of an NFL schedule, especially 15 minutes before opening day. There's nothing like it. All right, we're down to 10 seconds, Johnny, when we can reveal the NFL schedule. Got 8. All right, I'm counting. I'm not going to be ridiculous about it. 5 seconds till we can reveal the schedule. Houston Texans in 2020, and away we go as the Texans do open up against the Kansas City Chiefs that Thursday, September 10th. And week 2 is the Baltimore Ravens at home, top seed in the AFC last year. So you go Chiefs, Ravens, then at Pittsburgh. Oh my goodness. All right. So let's keep the whole thing up there, Tyler, if we can. Wow. I don't have the confidence monitor. I'm just giving you the games as we go. So I'll give you the whole thing right now. Chiefs, then Ravens at home, at Pittsburgh, then Minnesota at home. So Johnny, first quarter of the season, Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers, Minnesota. Hello, 2020. Then Then home to Jacksonville. So that's the first AFC South action. That's week 5. And you might think that's late to get into the division, but the Texans have gotten into the division at week 6, three, not consecutive, but 3 other times in the history of the franchise. So Jags at home on October 11th, at Tennessee, October 18th, then Green Bay at home, October 25th. Okay. Then you get the bye. And then the Jags again on the road. So that's second quarter of the season. Jags at Tennessee, Green Bay at home, at Jacksonville, with the bye between that Green Bay-Jacksonville game. Let me continue here and give you the whole thing because we're doing radio and video here. Then November 15th. So you came out of the bye and you were at Jacksonville. Then November 15th, you're at Cleveland. First trip to Cleveland since 2014 when Ryan Mallett got the start for the Texans and you beat Brian Hoyer. Then it's home for the New England Patriots. Should be Jarrett Stidham. We'll see. Then Thanksgiving. Johnny, I am so sorry to your family, but you're going to be spending Thanksgiving in Detroit. But you know what? It's a blessing. It really is. And you'll be home in time for a late night dinner. It's going to be great at Detroit again for Thanksgiving. The last time you were up there was Thanksgiving 2012, that wild game that went deep into overtime. So that is awesome. Then the Colts at home, at the Bears, December 13th, Johnny, at Chicago. Dress warm. Let me just tell you, that's not far off from the date they played the Bears in 2004 when it was close to 0 degrees there. The Texans actually won the game. It was a great day, but it was cold. Then at Indy, and it's one of those Saturday, Sunday things, December 19th or 20th, could be either day. We had that the last couple of years, played on Saturday both times, at the Jets in 2018, at Tampa Bay in 2019. Then Cincinnati at home, and the Titans are the regular season finale at NRG Stadium, January 3rd. That is your 2020 schedule, Johnny.
Whew. Okay. There's so many different things.
Let's go back, and I think we can break this down into parts here. The first part, which will include the preseason, because the preseason has at Minnesota, and you play them in the regular season, so that's a little strange there, but you're gonna deal with it, and it's the preseason. Seattle at home, August 20. They don't have exact dates for the preseason yet, but these are the weeks. It's the week August 13th to the 17th, whatever that long weekend might be. So at Minnesota, Seattle at home, week 2 of the preseason. At New Orleans, week 3 of the preseason, and then Dallas at home to finish off the preseason. So I love seeing the Saints and the Cowboys every year in the preseason, but that's your preseason. We'll get back to that later. All right, Johnny, let's digest the next 3. At the Chiefs, Ravens at home, at the Steelers. Your thoughts?
Wow. Once we heard that the Chiefs were the first game, my next thought went to, when are the Ravens?
Week 2.
Where are the Ravens on the schedule?
Yeah.
And that to me was the one game. And as you see it on the screen there, you notice it's a 3:25 kick, which is going to be the national game. So there's been a lot of talk nationally about the Texans this year, this offseason, because of the things that have happened and transpired and all the different movements and things that have taken place. Well, the nation's going to get a load of the Texans Thursday night against the Chiefs, and then Sunday afternoon with Nance and Romo in the building as the Baltimore Ravens come through. And it just hit me as I look at the Baltimore Ravens, which that week is our Liberty White game. It'll be the 3rd year of the last 4 that Calais Campbell will have played in the Liberty White game against us.
Oh,
it'll be his 3rd out of the 4 years.
Odd notes I didn't expect to hear today.
I don't know.
For you. Taking that one out.
Mark, to go Kansas City, Baltimore, and then go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Roethlisberger back. And by the way, the Steelers were a top 5 defense last year. Yeah. So there's that to think about. Top 5 defense from a year ago. Things change. But you get Roethlisberger back. We don't know how Roethlisberger is going to be, but his name is still Ben Roethlisberger, so that's a concern.
Yeah.
So at Pittsburgh, and then all right, so that's the first part here. Let's go to the next slide here, if you will, in video form. And I know we're doing radio as well here. Vikings and Jags at home. Now, you mentioned it when we had McClain on earlier that Vikings, you have Dom Capers as an assistant with them. You have Gary Kubiak as offensive coordinator. Last time he was just the OC of a team was Baltimore in 2014, and Baltimore had its best offensive season ever at the time. Of course, Lamar Jackson has since eclipsed that. But the Texans actually beat the Ravens. I don't know if that has anything to do with this, but Minnesota's a tough out, no doubt.
Oh, there's no question. I like the fact that the 2 better teams in NFC North are coming to NRG Stadium. but the fact that the Vikings and the Packers will be coming both in October. But to me, if there's a key stretch here for the Texans in this season, I think it's here. And this is why. When you look after the bye, you have 3 out of 4 on the road after the bye. You have 5 out of 7 on the road right after the bye. So you have to obviously have one period where you're at home for a significant stretch, and it's this one, starting with Minnesota in week 4, then the Jags the next week in week 5, and then the Packers in week 7. That 3 out of 4 stretch right there ends up being a massively important stretch for the Texans to have 3 out of those 4 right before the bye week. Because when you come out of that bye week, now you're going on the road. And we've talked about this throughout, Mark. You were getting the majority of the playoff teams. I think it was 5 of the 8 teams you were facing at home were playoff teams, but you're facing them at home. So that meant Minnesota. That meant Green Bay. That meant the Ravens. Those teams you're playing at home. On the road, you're only facing 2 teams that went to the playoffs, Kansas City and Tennessee.
Right.
So when you get a stretch of 3 or 4 like this, you have got to take advantage, and that will not be easy because the one road trip in there is one to play the Tennessee Titans, and everybody thinks the Tennessee Titans will be that much better in 2020.
Well, you beat them last year in a huge game up there in December. I mean, absolutely colossal game, and you got the better of them in that one. I mean, I think one thing about last year that Texans obviously won the division, and the reason why is because they bounced back from that bad day in Baltimore to beat the Colts on a Thursday night. And by the way, there's no Thursday night game here other than the opener.
Right.
Other notes of this one, and I'll wait to really expand on this, no Monday night games, which I don't like for some reasons because I like Monday Night Football, the whole pageantry of it all, but you do get that short week after. So, when I say there's no Thursday night game other than the opener, you do have the Thanksgiving game, which is a Thursday day game. So that's a little bit tougher than a regular garden variety Thursday night. There's just something about Thanksgiving, though, that gives you a little extra adrenaline, I would think, as long as you don't have too much turkey and stuffing.
Yeah, I mean, look, our guys have always liked, and I think 31 other teams feel the same way. They love being on national television, and when you're on national television, no matter what, whether you're there for Thanksgiving, whether you're there playing a Sunday night game, there are no Sunday night games, but that first game against the Chiefs that's Sunday night football, essentially. That's Al and that's Al and Chris, at least for the time being, before it turns into Drew Brees someday. But that's Al and Chris. That's Sunday night football on a Thursday, kicking off the season. So that's kind of got a little bit. But the one other thing that I noticed, Mark, and I pointed out the 325 game against Baltimore, as it sits right now, every game from week 3 on is a noon or 11:30 kick.
I like this. I like this a lot. I think it's great to have that routine. And when you work in the league, it's a lot better. But I think it's also good for the players in terms of body rhythm and things like that.
Yeah.
But look, the great teams play in prime time. Now, hold off on the prime time here because you do have Thanksgiving. You have the Thursday nighter. You have that late in the season Colts thing that they'll probably put on a Saturday because I'm guessing that game's going to be pretty large or large enough, at least as big as Texans Tampa Bay was last year. And they put that in front of a national television audience, even though it was a day game. And who knows what else gets flexed along the way. You mentioned that Ravens afternoon game. Some of these others might get flexed either to an afternoon national window or a Sunday night as the year goes on. Now, this doesn't take into account anything. McClain was talking about a complete shift in scheduling if they had to due to COVID or whatever. Look, we can't even speculate on that. We'll be here all day, and that's for our regular show, 6 to 7 weeknights here. But right now, we're just grinding through this schedule. All right, so we gave you the next set of games: Vikings, Jags, Titans on the road, the Packers at home, the bye at Jacksonville, at Cleveland. All right, let's take the rest of them here. Then you have the Patriots at home, followed by Detroit, Thanksgiving. Look, that's a quick two-game stretch there where, remember, in 2012, we talk about the Texans going to Detroit for Thanksgiving. That Jacksonville deep in overtime game took place the Sunday before. So there you were 4 days later playing again deep into overtime. We always talk about that in Texans history, playing 10 quarters in 4 days and what it cost that 2012 team, maybe the greatest Texans team ever, down the stretch when they lost 3 out of 4 when they had a chance to grab home field advantage throughout. So, those games close together, having to travel for Thanksgiving because you weren't going to play that one at home with Detroit. That's a really notable little setup right there. And then after Detroit, again, another mini bye because it's a Thursday game, and the Colts at home. And, McClain was talking about, do you get one of those 2 out of 3 against a division opponent? And yes, you do. You get the Colts at home, at the Bears, and then the Colts on the road. And, Chicago and Indy are not that far away from each other, but you're definitely going to fly home. Don't get me wrong. That's an interesting little stretch right there, Johnny, as we look down the stretch of 2020.
Yeah, it certainly is. And here's a couple of things that I noticed, of course. When the Bears game popped up, like, okay, it's December. Okay. Yeah. However, after we play the Browns, and we play the Browns on November 15th, we have 2, 4, 6, 7 games after the Browns game. Only one is outside. Only one's outside.
These are the things you look at as the sideline reporter.
Only one is outside, and that's the Bears game in December. So I'm going to get every weather thing you can have happen in December in Chicago is going to happen that day just because of that very note. Yeah. But you go inside at home, Patriots, Detroit's inside. You play the Colts at home. You're obviously outside for the Bears. The Colts are inside, and then you got the last 2 at home. So you're inside from November 22nd. It's a very special day in history, by the way. All the way through the rest of the year, except for that one game at Chicago. That's going to be a little Midwest, that little Chicago, Indianapolis back-to-backer. That's the one thing. We talked about this and mentioned this a little bit. The back-to-back road games in the NFL are a whole heck of a lot more difficult than people think. They are very difficult. And we've done that before. We did that in 18. You talked about it earlier, that Saturday, when it goes on the schedule, kind of that flex day. It's that December.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, Saturday, Sunday. And it happened with the Jets in 2018.
Right.
2019, it was with the Bucs. That back-to-back, and I don't think it was back-to-back with the Bucs, though, but it was back-to-back with the Jets, because it was Jets, fly back home, and then fly back out and face Philadelphia the next week.
It was back-to-back with the Bucs and the Titans last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was.
Yeah, so you had that. And look, you won 3 out of 4 of those in that back-to-back scenario, because the one you lost was Philly, and that was a really close game that you couldn't hold on to the lead at the end in 2018. Look, so your final 4 games at Chicago, at Indy, Bengals at home, Tennessee at home. And before everyone circles, Bengals, that's a W. Okay, I get it. The Bengals have the number 1 pick in the draft for a reason. But, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. Look at Denver and Drew Lock. I just pointed out Gardner Minshew and needing a 2-point conversion stop to win a game. You don't know how this stuff's going to play out. And I can tell you this. All these teams are looking at the Texans saying, that's tough. That's the Chiefs opening night. They're going to they remember what happened. This is not going to be this is no layup for the Kansas City Chiefs. Texans beat them in the regular season. They had that lead. I don't even want to go over that game anymore, Johnny. But that is, I wonder what the line's going to be on that one, that Thursday nighter. I think everybody's going to be super fired up to go up there. You're going to have to watch them get their rings. And then no matter what happens,
the fireworks.
You want to talk about
dropping the banner. I mean, all kinds of things that'll go with that game.
I'm not a gambling man, but win or lose that night, Bill O'Brien's going to talk about turning the page real fast. I don't care that they're 10 days to get ready for the Ravens, because
the Ravens.
When the Texans are done,
we could not come up with a scenario.
What's the Ravens schedule? Who do they
Chiefs
open with?
And Ravens to start the season.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean,
to start the season.
John, if you and I were doing a hypothetical schedule show and you said Chiefs Ravens, you'd be like, no, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. They'll never do that to the Texans.
Stretch that out. One in September, put one in, I don't know, late November, separate those two. But no, back to back. The NFL is getting Mahomes, Watson week 1, Lamar and Watson week 2. I mean, right out of the chute. So right out of the chute, you're going to face Mahomes, Lamar, Roethlisberger, Cousins, Minshew Mania, and Tannehill, and then Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, we talked about murderer's row of quarterbacks last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, last year was the murderer's row of quarterbacks. I call this 4-game set to open the season the gauntlet, all right? The 4-game gauntlet to start the season, because Mahomes, Jackson, Roethlisberger, Cousins is tough. And it's not just those guys. It's everybody. It's the Ravens defense. It's the Steelers defense, 2 top 5 defenses. It's whatever the Chiefs do to improve. The Vikings defense, of course. And, this is a Vikings team that, they've taken some shots over the years because Cousins can't win big games. Look, they beat the Saints at the Superdome in the postseason.
Yeah, and Cousins was big in that game. And Cousins was huge in that game. He makes that throw to Thielen. I mean, the last time, it's funny because the last time we played the Vikings, I was talking to you, and I think we were talking about this last night. When the last time we played the Vikings, we get the first quarter and a half. It's like, who is this number 19 guy? Who is this Thielen? Who is this that's making all these catches? And then it was from that day forward where Adam Thielen ended up being one of the best receivers in the NFL. So 4 years later, he has now moved up the ranks and is one of the better receivers in the NFL. So I think we'll be much more aware of that guy when he comes to NRG Stadium on October 4th.
Sean Pendergast obviously knows these lines like, he knows the birthdays of his kids, and said that the Chiefs by 10.5 in a look-ahead line a little while ago. So I don't know, a little while, not
that was
today,
the playoff. That was the playoff line, was 10.
Well, let's do better than cover. We'll see. But then, you mentioned the quarterbacks here. I have no idea what kind of season Ryan Tannehill is going to have, but I'm familiar with the work of Aaron Rodgers, and he comes to your building. And the last time he did that, he threw 6 touchdown passes in 2012, and he'll be here October 25th. And then you get the bye. Look, can I nitpick a little bit here, Johnny?
Of course.
Because I've picked a few nits on this program before.
No, you absolutely.
I'd like to buy a little bit later, but I'll live with it. It's okay. I'd like to buy a little, and maybe the buy earlier this year is good because the lack of offseason program. Yeah, I mean, I'd like it the next week, but it's fine. I'm just nitpicking. It's actually, I'd much rather have it than say October 4th or 11th. Okay, so I don't want it too early. But maybe you do need it a little bit earlier this year because of the lack of off-season conditioning and all that. I have no idea what kind of season Jacksonville's going to have. You and I talked about Cleveland last night. Everybody makes fun of Cleveland. They had massive hype going into last year, and we all know what happened. And Freddie Kitchens lost his job because of it. But you had 2 receivers with 72 catches or more. You had Nick Chubb, who's top 3 in the league in rushing, or top 4. You have, Baker Mayfield can make plays in a variety of ways. This is going to be a tough road trip, and you have lost up there before. Who was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns when you lost up there in 2007?
Romeo
Question. It was Romeo Crennel, who won 10 games that year, but somehow didn't make the playoffs. But he would this year with a 7-game entry out of each conference into the postseason. And I think as we look at the schedule, that's another thing to remember here. Another thing to remember is the Texans have never been to the postseason as a wild card. They've always gotten in by winning the division. Is this a year where that happens? We have to, after we're off the air here, we're going to look at the schedules of the other teams. And I know there's going to be a lot of digesting of that. How does the Titans schedule look? Look, the Colts, everyone's discounting the Jags. But they kind of did that before 2017. Even though that team loaded up, there was very little credibility going into the season until they came into NRG Stadium on opening day and did what they did. So there's a lot to consider here as you look at the entire body of work. By the way, we're going to have Bill O'Brien in just a few moments here with Drew Doherty talking about the schedule, how it looks to him, some notable things to him about the 2020 campaign.
I mean, Mark, listen, it's the NFL. We've realized this. There are no layups. I mean, last year, we end up we beat the Patriots on a Sunday night. It's like, now we get into this part of the schedule where we should roll. And Drew Lock comes in here and it opens a can of what on all of us. So the schedule, what it looks like today, you might look at it in as the season goes on, you're like, wow, this is really kind of rounding into shape the way that we like. I mean, it was good to catch the Ravens in week 2. It was good to catch the Vikings in week 4. Man, the Chiefs have really turned a corner after week 1 as they've really incorporated Clyde Edwards-Helaire into the offense and all these different things. Likewise, you could run into the Colts in December and go, boy, they've really gotten their act together from what they were earlier. And you get the Colts both in December this year. December this year.
And I
2 weeks apart.
I said I'd be willing to go. I'd be willing to go back to the old way of going up there in December, like having the second part of that season series on the road and in December. And I got my wish. I don't know why I asked for this. I don't know why I requested this, but you know me, I love the drama of going to Indy in December. I always love that. I love going up there. Now that they've had success up there, I love going up there. And I just think that's potentially a killer game, you know, for both squads. It could be a huge game in this division, going a long way toward determining who wins it. Now, quick look at the preseason. We mentioned it: at Minnesota, Seattle at home, at New Orleans, and Dallas at home. Now, the at Minnesota part of this, you might think, well, has this ever happened before? But 2017 New England at the Greenbrier, right?
Yeah.
Not only did you play them in the regular season week 3, you practiced against them at the Greenbrier. You played them in the preseason at home. You had plenty of familiarity, and it didn't stop you from scoring points that day, really. I mean, you went toe-to-toe with the Patriots in Watson's start, his second start ever.
Right. So, this is the part I'm curious about. When I saw that preseason schedule, the first thing, what I would have thought in a normal situation is we're going to Minnesota to practice. Or Seattle's coming to us to practice.
That's what I'm saying. I think COVID is a bigger factor in stopping that from happening than, say, the fact that you play them in the regular season.
Yeah, I agree.
I could be wrong, because Bill O'Brien has done it before. Maybe he hates the idea now.
Yeah,
because you mentioned that the Patriots saw some plays and maybe they've scouted them. And,
we saw that happen.
I don't know.
Yeah, we saw that happen and Belichick was quick to point it out through his Bellustrator.
He revealed it.
He did. He revealed it. So maybe that's something that the Texans and other teams have learned from, and maybe they're not going to do. I tend to think that COVID ends up being more of the reason. If we don't have those joint practices, I think COVID is more the reason than anything else.
And very understandable. Very understandable if that's the case, because I think planning these things, you mentioned it, and I think John McClain was talking about it on radio in the first segment, that the scheduling, it's not just let's move dates around. It's building availability, which should be okay, let's face it, but hotels and airlines and all of it. I mean, there's so much that goes into moving 150, 200 people around when it's all said and done, game to game, and having these big, huge hotels in these cities. I mean, this is the stuff people don't want to hear, but it's a reality for all of these NFL teams if you're going to mess with this schedule the way it is. All right, well, that's going to do it for the video portion of this. We're going to stay on radio for you, but we're all going to enjoy Drew Dougherty speaking with Bill O'Brien about the schedule. Let's listen in to what the coach had to say to Drew Dougherty.
All right, we have general manager, head coach Bill O'Brien with us. And Bill, before we get into the schedule, I know you wanted to recognize a few folks, and some folks who are very special to all of us during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, appreciate that, Drew. Always good to talk to you, and very exciting time of the year here. Today is one of those days on the NFL calendar that everybody looks forward to. And for our organization and our fans, it's a day that every single year I've been here that people are really excited about. But obviously this year is a little bit different. And I think it's really, really important on behalf of the McNairs and our organization, our players, our coaches, everybody involved with our organization, to start off by expressing our condolences to, all the families who have lost loved ones to this virus, and to thank the healthcare workers and the essential employees around the country who are fighting this pandemic. Their continued service and unrelenting work over the last couple of months has been extraordinary. For me and my family to watch. All of us being at home, we've been able to watch these heroes, work to save these lives, and it's been unbelievable to watch. I know we're going to get into the schedule, Drew, here in a second and start looking ahead, but I think it's just really important to continue to support and acknowledge the heroes, in our city of Houston, our great city of Houston, and obviously around the country, around the world. As we set our sights on the season, whenever that season's going to begin. It's important to recognize those folks. So I appreciate you letting me start off with that, Drew.
Yeah, amen to all of that. And you just kind of touched on it. We do know this slate of games, but we also know that we got to be prepared perhaps to be flexible because of what's going on in the world, don't we?
There's no doubt about it. I think, all of us within our own homes right now, we're seeing what's going on around the world. And, look, at the end of the day, there will be football played. Football will be played. When that is played, we'll have to see how that goes. But right now we're on schedule to have a season, and And I know that the McNairs and the Houston Texans organization is going to take every precaution necessary to make sure that people are safe, players are safe, coaches are safe, everybody involved in the organization, and obviously to the great fans of the Houston Texans that we're safe too. So, we're looking forward to the day when the season begins, but, just really important to take it one day at a time and take the right steps necessary to ensure everybody's safety and health.
No doubt. And when the season begins, it begins in a big way in primetime Thursday night football. It's the first game of the entire NFL schedule. It's against the reigning Super Bowl champions. How exciting is that for you guys as a team, getting that challenge right out of the gate?
Without a doubt. Everybody wants to start off the season on national television, and we're able to do that. Playing a great opponent, obviously Super Bowl champions led by Andy Reid, and it's going to be a big challenge for us. Our guys looking forward to that.
You get to see Lamar Jackson and the Ravens at home. I know you love playing in front of the NRG Stadium faithful. What a two-step off the start of the season, though.
Yeah, tough two opponents to start the season with. They're all tough, right, Drew? But, I think coming back home to be able to play Baltimore, another great team, playoff team, great coaching staff. Like you said, Lamar Jackson, excellent players on that team. Going to be a great experience for us, a great opportunity for our players to be able to play in front of our hometown fans and play against a great opponent.
Now, I know you love your pecan pie on Thanksgiving Day, but you're going to get the Lions in the morning that time. What's it like playing on a holiday like that when the whole nation's going to be watching?
That's another great opportunity, just such an NFL tradition to be one of the teams to be able to play the Detroit Lions, who are always on Thanksgiving. Coached in that game before, and it's an exciting game to be a part of, and another really tough NFC North opponent, national TV game. That's what it's all about, right? Football and turkey on Thanksgiving, and we'll be a big part of that.
Yeah, and then in the month of December, 3 divisional games. You've got the Colts twice in 3 weeks, and you finish the entire season with the Titans at home. You like that, playing the AFC South a lot of times in the month of December?
And it seems like it's always that way. The NFL wants those rivalry games late in the year, and there's a lot on the line in those games, and we have a ton of respect for the teams in our division, and we'll be ready for those opportunities.
Bill O'Brien, we appreciate your time. We know how busy you are. Best of luck, and we hope to see you again very, very soon.
Thank you, Drew. Good to see you.